Hello, and welcome to 5 Minutes Fluentcast, the podcast that takes you to fluency. Here, you improve your English naturally, listening to real conversations about everyday life. Let's get started.
Alcohol is one of the most socially accepted substances in the world. It's present in celebrations, weekends, dinners, stressful days, and moments of relaxation. For many people, drinking feels normal, even harmless, especially when it's just a few drinks. But have you ever stopped to think about what alcohol actually does inside your body? Not just the obvious effects like feeling relaxed or dizzy, but what happens to your brain, your organs, your sleep, your hormones, and your energy levels, even when you don't feel drunk. Today, we're talking about the effects of alcohol on the body, how it impacts your brain, your physical health, your mental health, and why even moderate drinking can have consequences most people don't realize. This is not about judgment or fear. It's about understanding what's really happening so you can make more conscious choices.
I really like this topic because alcohol is rarely questioned. People talk a lot about food, exercise, productivity, but alcohol often gets a free pass. And the tricky part is that alcohol doesn't always make you feel bad immediately. Sometimes the effects are subtle, delayed, or cumulative, which makes them easier to ignore.
Let's start with the brain, because that's where alcohol acts first and most strongly. Alcohol is a depressant. That doesn't mean it makes you sad. It means it slows down the central nervous system. It affects communication between neurons, reduces inhibition, and alters perception, judgment, and reaction time. That's why people feel more relaxed, more talkative, or more confident after drinking. But what's really happening is that alcohol is turning down the brain's control systems. Over time, frequent alcohol use affects memory, concentration, emotional regulation, and decision-making. Even when someone doesn't feel intoxicated, the brain is still working less efficiently.
And one thing people underestimate is how alcohol affects emotional balance. Alcohol interferes with neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. In the short term, it may create a sense of pleasure or relief, but afterward, the brain tries to rebalance, and that often leads to irritability, low mood, anxiety, or emotional numbness. That's why some people feel more anxious or emotionally fragile the day after drinking, even if they didn't drink much. Alcohol doesn't remove stress, it delays it, and often amplifies it later.
Now, let's talk about the physical side. When you drink alcohol, your body treats it as a toxin, because it is one. The liver immediately prioritizes breaking down alcohol over everything else. While the liver is busy processing alcohol, other important processes slow down: fat metabolism, blood sugar regulation, detoxification, and hormone balance. Over time, this increases the risk of liver inflammation, fatty liver disease, and metabolic problems, even in people who don't drink heavily. Alcohol also affects the cardiovascular system. It can increase blood pressure, disrupt heart rhythm, and contribute to inflammation in blood vessels.
And digestion is another big one. Alcohol irritates the stomach lining, affects gut bacteria, and interferes with nutrient absorption. That can lead to bloating, acid reflux, gut discomfort, and deficiencies in vitamins like B complex and magnesium. The gut and the brain are deeply connected, so when alcohol disrupts digestion, it often affects mood, energy, and immunity as well.
One of the biggest myths about alcohol is that it helps you sleep. Yes, alcohol can make you fall asleep faster, but the quality of that sleep is much worse. Alcohol reduces REM sleep, which is the phase responsible for memory consolidation, emotional processing, and mental recovery. So even if you sleep for 8 hours, you may wake up feeling tired, foggy, or unrefreshed.
That's why alcohol-related sleep leads to daytime fatigue, poor focus, and low motivation. The body didn't actually rest, it was sedated. And when this becomes a pattern, people start relying on caffeine to compensate, which creates another cycle of stress and imbalance.
Another important aspect is how alcohol is used emotionally. Many people drink to relax, to disconnect, or to cope with stress. And while that might work temporarily, it doesn't solve the underlying problem. Alcohol reduces the brain's ability to process emotions properly. So instead of dealing with stress, you're postponing it and often making it stronger.
That's where the cycle starts. Stress leads to drinking. Drinking disrupts sleep, mood, and energy, and that makes daily life more stressful. Over time, alcohol becomes less about enjoyment and more about relief, and that's when it quietly starts taking more than it gives.
In the long term, regular alcohol consumption increases the risk of chronic inflammation, cognitive decline, hormonal imbalance, and mental health issues. It also affects motivation and discipline, not because people become lazy, but because the brain's reward and effort systems are altered. Small amounts, repeated consistently, can still have an impact. This isn't about extremes, it's about accumulation.
And the hardest part is that many of these effects don't feel dramatic. They feel like normal tiredness, normal stress, or normal lack of focus. So people don't connect the dots.
So, alcohol is not just a drink, it's a substance that affects the brain, the body, sleep, emotions, and long-term health, even when used socially or moderately. Understanding this isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. When you know how something affects you, you regain choice.
And awareness creates freedom. You can decide when, why, and if alcohol fits into your life, instead of using it automatically.
Practical application. Here's a simple practice you can try. For 1 or 2 weeks, pay attention to how alcohol affects you, not just while drinking, but the next day. Notice your sleep, energy, mood, focus, and stress levels.
You don't need to quit or change everything at once. Just observe with curiosity, not judgment. That awareness alone can change your relationship with alcohol.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Fluentcast.
Thanks for listening, and we hope this conversation helped you see alcohol from a more informed perspective.
Remember, health isn't about perfection.
It's about conscious choices.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Fluentcast.
If you enjoyed this conversation and learned something new,
Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
we post new episodes with real English and real ideas about life.
You can also download the PDF with the full transcript of this episode. The link is in the description below.
And here's an important tip. Try listening to this same episode every day for 1 week.
Repetition helps you understand more deeply, notice new expressions, and improve your listening skills.
This is how real learning happens, naturally and step by step.
See you next time.
Bye.